Hi, today I'm going to be doing a video that is a response to a viewer question. As you guys know, I do weekly Wednesday videos for the We Are Freedom Fighters channel on YouTube, and it's an eating disorder recovery channel, and there are several women that are a part of it. It's a really wonderful thing. I love being part of that collaboration. And this past week, I did a video about starting to look healthy and doing well physically, but still having an eating disorder mentally, and how to come to terms with that, and how to push on through, and basically answering the question, is this as good as it gets when you're recovering and you have to put a lot of effort into it. But a viewer asked me if I would be able to answer the question, how can you push forward in recovery when you are having a hard time pushing forward in just everyday life? How is it possible to beat an eating disorder when really you just want to die? And Bia did a wonderful job on the topic, but the viewer had just said, and not insensitively in any way, that Bia did a wonderful job, but that it's hard for her to relate to pressures of a teenager because Bia is still in high school. So she asked me if I would do a video response to answer the question from my point of view, because I do have 10 years on Bia, and maybe from my perspective, it would just be more helpful for this particular viewer to relate specifically. It's always going to be hard to push forward in recovery when you hate your life and you don't want to be living life, because recovery is hard work. You always hear people say that it's a journey and it's a process and it will get better and better and better, and all of those things are true. But initially, and for the majority of the time, recovery is hard work and takes a lot of effort. If you don't want to live each day, recovery is going to seem like this completely far off goal. It might even seem like an obstacle to you. My first instinct is to tell you that struggling with an eating disorder and not wanting to live, they go hand in hand. So if you're trying to figure out how you can keep pushing forward in recovery, but you don't want to live, it's not necessarily because you have to figure out first how to want to live and then focus on how to recover. The two go hand in hand, and most likely, probably a lot of the reason why you don't want to live is because the eating disorder has sucked all the joy out of your life. The eating disorder is such hard work. Recovering from the eating disorder has become such hard work that you don't have any joy in waking up in the morning. The two are completely interrelated. The two are completely enmeshed. You cannot look at one and sort of figure it out and solve it and then look at the other. You have to look at them both at the same time. I think a lot of people at any given point in their recovery do feel like they don't want to live, or living takes too much effort. I have never been suicidal, but when I was struggling and things were at their hardest, I felt like I wanted to give up. I didn't just want to give up on recovery, I wanted to give up on everything that was going on around me. Life just seemed like it required too much work. If I could have stayed in bed and cried and taken naps, I would have done it. And part of that is because the eating disorder zaps so much of your energy. And it sort of alters your mind, it alters your mood. And you have to remember that as you take steps to focus on recovering from your eating disorder, that life aspect will get better. You have to believe that if you are focusing on your eating disorder and putting effort forth with that, that you are going to, in turn, want to live life more, be able to live life more. Now, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a lot of time, and it might be a struggle, and it might seem like you're failing initially, but if you're afraid of failure, you're probably going to fail. So you have to give yourself every faith. If you don't like yourself, if you have no self-love whatsoever, that's your number one biggest problem. You're not going to be kind to yourself if you don't like yourself. And learning to like yourself is, I think, a work in progress. I think for your entire life, you're going to learn yourself and learn to like yourself and sort of get to know the person that you are, the person that you're becoming, the person that you want to become. And it sounds like it's a lot of work, but the more faith you have in yourself, the more you want to like the person you are, the more successful you're going to be. I suggest that you sit down right now, today, the next time today that you have 5 minutes, get a piece of paper, get a notebook, get a Post-it note, whatever it is you have lying around that you can write on, grab a pen and sit there and write all of the things that you have to live for. You need to come up with at least 5, and I guarantee you that they exist. So if you sit there and you can't think of any, or you think of 3 and then you're stuck, you have to sit there and think harder. There are definitely at least 5 things that you have to live for, and you have to find them. And as soon as you write them down, it's validation, pen to paper, you're seeing those words there. Those are the things you have to live for. And good for you if you can list more than 5, because the more things you have to live for, the better you will be able to understand why recovery is worth it and why you need to keep pushing forward, even though life seems like a chore right now. Life gets hard sometimes. Life gets so difficult, you just can't think of adding one more thing to your life or your back is going to break. One more burden, however small, is going to break you. You're going to collapse. You won't be able to get out of the hole that you're in, and you'll just give up and forget life. And I completely understand that feeling. And you have to remember what life is really about when those times happen. And I've talked about this before, about at the end of every day sort of naming a few things that you're thankful for that day. And they don't have to be these enormous things, and they can't be the same thing every day. You couldn't, for example, say, my children, my husband, my mom. You couldn't list 3 things like that that are the same every day. The point is to look for the little things in life that really either brought a smile to your face, made you happy, made your day worthwhile, or made your day better than it would have otherwise been. For example, you would say, I'm thankful for today the amazing cup of tea that I had this morning, the wonderful conversation that I had with my friend I haven't talked to in 2 months, or an email that I got from a coworker telling me I did a good job. Those are 3 completely random things I just thought of off the top of my head, but they're supposed to be very specific to your day, and they can be very small. For example, the cup of tea that you had in the morning, if it was just what you needed, it smelled good, it warmed you, it was comforting, that's something great that you can use as something that you're thankful for. You have to put in the effort to look at the positive things in your life, because if you don't put in the effort to look at the positive things, you're going to fall flat every single day, and there really won't be anything worth living for because you won't discover it. I'm telling you this not to sound, hokey and corny, and not to sound self-righteous either, but I have been absolutely 100% miserable, completely miserable, years ago, miserable. And I was able to pull myself out of that by remembering what it really was that was important in my life, what I really wanted to be important, even if I didn't have those things at that point in time, things that I wanted to achieve, and realizing that there was no way that I was ever going to be happy completely if I had an eating disorder. So those are all, very small steps in the scheme of things. But once you make a commitment and a plan to look for the positive, you're going to be so much better off. And remember that an eating disorder and living your life go hand in hand. So you can't recover from an eating disorder and then worry about living your life. You can't worry about wanting to live your life and then focus on recovering from an eating disorder. The 2 things are so related. Life hurts. I'm not saying it doesn't, but there are so many beautiful things in life as well. And to give up on yourself is the worst disservice that you can do. You don't need a list of tips and tricks and suggestions and advice. You just need to remember what's important, and you need to take that time for yourself to realize that. If you feel like you can't get out of bed in the morning and you're just lying there and you're miserable, that's the time when you need to get out that pen and paper and write down those things that are reasons for living. And sometimes the very, very simple act of doing that, taking 5 minutes to say, this is a reason to live, even if you can't think of any, lying there in bed and wasting an hour of your day remembering what might be a reason for you to live, are perfectly, perfectly solid ways of spending your time, because there's nothing more important than listing the reasons you have to live. Have a wonderful day, everyone.